Okay, I think I'm live. All right, guys. So this is going to be my tournament preview of a tournament I'm going to. It's actually in about 3 weeks' time, so this is a really early um, preview of the tournament. But between now and the tournament, I'm going to try and get a fair few, warm-up battle reports in and all that kind of stuff. So getting this in now, this is just going to be quick detail of what the tournament is, where it's at, what it's called, and then I'm going to go through the comp pack that's in use on the day. So the tournament is a one-day event, 3 games, 2,400 points. It's at the Outpost in Sheffield, and it's relatively uncommon. So we'll get to the comp in a minute. But really, there's not much more to talk about in terms of the tournament. It's 3 games. The first game is Battle Line. The second game is Blood and Glory, which is slightly changed so that when the first person breaks, the game doesn't automatically end, but it gives up 825 victory points for the person that gets broken. Well, the person that does the breaking gets 825 victory points. And then game 3 is Watchtower, which again has got some changes. Instead of a Watchtower, it's a Blood Forest. And holding the Watchtower doesn't auto win you the game, it gives you 825 victory points. So I quite like the missions, quite streamlined. I like the random scenarios from the book in tournaments. I think it's a lot more fun than just doing straight up battle line. It adds another layer of tactical acumen to the game, which is never a bad thing. So that's the tournament, 3 games, 2,400 points. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that comp. So I'm going to use a screen share because it'll be easier to just go through the comp. So I'm going to see if I actually get this to work now. And this is where it doesn't actually work. Okay, so it's decided not to work. Of course it doesn't, so just bear with me 1 second, guys, while I try and get this thing to work. Basically, the comp that's in use is a tally comp. So I guess we'll just go full screen. And then do this. Okay, so hopefully you can see this now. If you can't see what's on my screen now, then this is going to be kind of pointless, but I don't know if you can see it or not. So, I'm going to see if I can check. Yeah, see, you can see it. Awesome. Right, so the comp that's in use on this tournament is called Tally Comp, and this is a comp put forward for, it's actually a bigger tournament, for a tournament called Roll Call in the UK. And this tournament is, I think, it's a couple of weeks after the one day that I'm going to. So the tournament's using the same comp, kind of to be a warm up for Roll Call. I can't make it to Roll Call because of work commitments, but I can make it to this one day event, so I'm going along. So the fundamental principle of Tally Comp is you bring whatever you want. There's no restrictions. There's no you can't bring this, you can't bring that. You can bring special characters, massive Death Stars, and as many war machines as you can fit in. But the fundamental principle is you're going to pay for it. It's kind of like Swedish, but there's no limits. Like with Swedish, normally they'll set a restriction. You've got to be between 7 and 12, for example. But with the tally comp, there's no restrictions. You can go as low as you want, and you can get to a negative score. So we'll just move down a little bit here. So composition. So once you've written your army list, start at 0, then add or subtract as appropriate from the generic magic item list, the army specific list, to give you a final composition score. Note that it is possible to end up with a negative score. So basically what this comp does is it's gone through everything noteworthy in the BRB and in each of the specific army books, and giving it a score, either like +1 or -1 or +2, -2, whatever it may be, depending on its power level. And the idea is the better choice it is, the more points it's going to take away from you. And the idea is the lower your score, so say -10, that's a really hard list, and +3, +4, +55 is a really, really soft list. So the idea is try and find a balance between the two. So at the end of the tournament, your final composition score will be added or subtracted as appropriate from your battle points to give you a final score. Now this I'm not completely in agreement with, simply because I don't think it's a big enough of a difference to encourage people to bring softer lists. I mean, the idea is not to encourage any type of list, but when we start looking at the comp, I'm going to go through each of the armies individually. When you start looking at the things that they've put like point restrictions on, you're going to kind of see they're trying to push you away from, you know, the really hard edge, super competitive tournament list that we see at the top tables at GTs. They're trying to push people away from those armor builds. Yet, simply by saying, well, if you take this -4 or -5, okay, don't know what's going on there. So you take this really hard list that comes out as a -4, -5. If you go through and you completely table all your opponents, all we're going to do is deduct 4 points from you at the end, and you're probably still going to win. I don't think it's a big enough of a difference. You know, like if I take a soft list at like a +3 or a +4, that's a fairly soft list. It doesn't matter. I'm only going to get +4 added to my score at the end of the tournament. But if I've lost all my games anyway because I've took a soft list, there's really no point taking a soft list. Yeah, that's just my, you know, my perception of this comp score. What other comp packs I've seen do is they apply the score at the end of each game, because then it really has a fundamental difference to your placing overall. You know, so things I've seen is when you have like a differential comp, so you'll have a score out of 5, and if say your score is 2 points higher than your opponent, then 2 points get changed over in battle points. So if the game finished as a 10-all draw, but you had two more comp points, then it would be pushed to a 12-8 in your favour, for example. And that can really have a difference in the standings and placements in the tournament, and it really makes people think about bringing softer lists. Whereas just simply applying this relatively small score at the end of the tournament, it doesn't really offer much of a benefit for those players that want to try and bring a softer list. And also the composition score is used to settle any ties in the tournament should it be there. And I'm just going to double check this running after that. Yeah, still going. That's awesome. So, Tom Richards rule. People will probably know Tom Richards. He does battle reports on YouTube, and he was one of the people that, you know, quite vocally campaigned for the older books where the BSBs weren't allowed to take mundane equipment. This has now been rectified in the Wood Elves army book, which so this bit is now irrelevant because he gets that anyway. And there is I should know, so we'll get to it when we get to it. But the Wood Elves basically ignore this because this was written and submitted before the new Wood Elf book came out. So there's basically the TO has put up a comment saying basically just ignore all the Wood Elf stuff and just use the generic rules and ignore the Wood Elf specific section. But what this means is, you know, Bretonnian BSBs can actually take a lance now as opposed to having to take a magic lance or a magic weapon. So gives Bretonnian players a little bit of leeway with the magic items. Doesn't have a massive difference, but it's, like I say, as it's been changed in the Wood Elf army book, it's something that should be there anyway. So it's always good just to have that in a comp pack. And I've actually seen some comp packs not put it in, and there's no reason why, where it's just an oversight, people don't think about it, or whether they just think it's an adequate restriction for those armies. I don't know what it is, but I have seen some comp packs not include it, and I think it really should. So these are the generic composition rules. So these apply to everyone, every single army, no matter what book you take, no matter what army you turn up with. And this basically is some of the common magic items that you're going to see that affect the game. So you take the Crown of Command, you get -1. Standard Discipline, -1. The Folding Fortress is -3. And then, so they're like the items that are considered really good. And then because they're a bit fluffy, you know, you've seen very often +2 for the carpet and +2 for the wizarding hat. The carpet, I think maybe should be +1, not +2, because the carpet on certain characters actually has quite a good bit of use. You know, the main culprits are like death casters that can't take a flying mount. Things like the Chaos Dwarf Prophet. I've even seen flying Slaughtermasters, Beastmen Bray Shamans. Anything that can take death that can't take a flying mount can really benefit from taking the carpet. So maybe it should be +1, not +2. But again, it's something you don't really see. So they're trying to just promote some different builds here by giving you a comp score. And interesting that they've put a restriction on the fortress, which is good to actually specify how big and how tall it can be. So it kind of balances the fortress a little bit. So we'll go down a little bit and we'll start talking about the specific comp after we've got through this bit. So the following bonuses apply if the circumstances are met. So if you don't include a scroll, basically, or any item that automatically dispels a spell, so that's the Dispel Scroll, that's the Cube of Darkness, I think it's the Cube of Darkness for Lizardmen, the thing that does not too close, the Silver Mirror, anything that automatically dispels a spell, it gives you +1 if you don't take any of them. Obviously, it doesn't apply to demons because they can't take one anyway, and it would be silly just to give them a free point of comp like that. That drawback's already factored into the demon book because it's a very good army book. So +2 if your army includes a race-specific magic item that costs 75 points or more. And again, demons of chaos don't count because they actually have some good ones that they sometimes will have to take. And the runic weapons don't count from the dwarfs because some of them are very, very good. Basically, I think this is just trying to push people towards taking some fluffy items that you don't normally see. However, there are a couple of armies that can take advantage of this. The two that spring to mind, first and foremost, is the new Acorns of the Ancients. That's a very good item for Wood Elves, and that will give them a +2 straight off the bat. And considering that there's no there's nothing else in their book that can get them a -1, which, to be fair, should have been, it's quite easy to look at the Wood Elf book to see and see what is good in that book and what to hit them on. But so the Wood Elves can get a positive score very easy, but have a very filthy army. So Wood Elves are going to be good in this compact, just simply because it's not been updated in time to really penalise them enough. The other one that can take benefit of this is Empire, because you quite often see a Runefang. Maybe not so often as as other magic items from the book, but the Runefang's a good one for 85 points. I can see the Runefang turning up. Anything else, probably not. There's nothing else really that can take appropriate use of this. Maybe the Destroyer of Eternities. Maybe, but this is why it's in there, just to encourage you to take something that you otherwise wouldn't. There's not, a completely out and out power choice. And then +2 if your army includes no magic users, spells or bound items. I think that's a little bit shallow. So no magic users, spells or bound items of any kind, +2. I'd like to see that staggered. So if you've got no level 4, that should be +1. If there's no magic users, +2, and if there's nothing to basically no magic phase, then +3. Just because it staggers it a little bit, and then it's more appropriate to the power level that you're losing. Losing a level 4, but you've got level 2. That's not too much of a step down. It's a bit, but it's not ridiculous. From a level 4 to nothing at all, that's a huge step down. So, and that's not really reflected in those points awarded there. And of course, it doesn't apply to dwarfs because they can't take any anyway. And then the final one that's just a generic restriction is basically units will attract a negative modifier based on their points. So if it's between 400 and 600 points, it's -1. If it's 600 and 750, it's -3. And if it's over 750, then it's -5. Which is quite good. It cuts down on Death Stars, cuts down on really big units. However, unlike other compacts, it doesn't allow for certain units and certain armies that kind of need bigger units, and it really forces those units to be pushed down to a point where they're no longer the viable choice that they normally are. But it's a fair restriction. It's a nice, easy blanket way of just cutting out Death Stars and ridiculous units. So there we go. So we're going to look at some army-specific composition now. So Beastmen up first, as per the alphabet, because that is an awesome way of doing things. So Beastmen players may choose to either start at comp of score of +5 or receive an additional 300 points. Good bit of flexibility. Either you can you can play at 2,400 points like everyone else, but take a little bit of a filthier army because you get basically 5 points for free. Or you can take 300 points and just take more stuff, which is nice. So we look at the negative modifiers. So -1 per shaman or great shaman after the first, only if you take the Herdstone, perfectly acceptable. It makes you pay for your Herdstone spam. It's probably the best thing Beastmen can do in their current form, along with the the Blended Doomball or the Blended Beastlord. The Herdstone spam gives them just complete dominance in the Magic phase, particularly when you couple it with like things like the Jagged Dagger. They can really start powering up their Magic phases and just run away with the game if the matchups are there. But it's not completely over the top because the book is still inherently, on the lower end of power. -1 per Ungor Raiders after the second. That's just cutting down on these really skew lists where you've just got nothing but skirmishers. So that's good to see that it's you get 2 for free, and then you're paying for them after that. They're so cheap and so frustrating that it's good just to curb that in a little bit. Same for Harpies. Harpies are really good and really cheap. It's good to see that they're -1 each as well. And then -1 for every Tuskarl Chariot after the first 3. So again, they're giving you a little bit of leeway. You're getting 3 for free, but then you're paying for them after that because Tuskarl Chariots are, they're cheap, they're effective, and they fill out core. So the things that you get a +1 for, so you've got big units of Minotaurs. Over on the UK scene, then known as the Liabilitors, because quite often they're just a liability in your list unless you know exactly how to play them. You +1 for a unit of 20 Ungor Herds because you don't normally see them. +1 for Centaurs, for a Giant, for a Jabus Life, for a Cygor and a Gorgon. Again, just things you don't normally see from a Beastman army, trying to get you to trying to get you just to change it up a little bit, take things that you probably normally wouldn't, and to try to give you credit for, because those are like the softer choices, things like the Gorgon and the Jabus Life, and the Centaurs and the Ungor Herd. They're the weaker choices in the book, so it kind of gives you an appropriate reward for taking those weaker choices. So that's Beastmen in a nutshell. The only thing they're trying to stop is the out-and-out spam. So they're stopping, the Herdstone spam, they're stopping the Ungor Raider spam, and they're stopping the Chariot spam. Something the Beastman book is very good for is spamming, and they've kind of, put the brakes on that, which is good. Bretonnia. So Bretonnia doesn't have much in the way of minuses, same in the way of Beastmen, because they're a fairly weak book, and there's not a lot in there that people are going to be up in arms about if you take it. So -1 for Virtue Heroism, perfectly acceptable. That's a very, very, very powerful addition to the army, being able to just heroically blow anything in the game. Gone, dead. Very powerful ability for the Bretonnian Lord to have. So is appropriate that that's -1. -1 for Silvermoon Spell Scroll. Normally the scroll doesn't attach any negative modifier on its own, but when you've got 2 of them, I can see why it would be considered a slightly power option to take that. Crown of Command is an additional -1, -2 if it's on a Damsel or Prophetess. Bretonnian army that really benefit from the Crown of Command. Very tough to shift units, small, expensive units that struggle after the charge. The Crown of Command really buffs up Bretonnia, so it's good that it's an additional -1, and this is of course on top of the -1 that you take anyway if you're taking the Crown of Command. So it's actually -2 the Crown of Command for Bretonnia, -3 if it's on a Damsel or Prophetess. And the reason why it's -2 in a Damsel or Prophetess is they can hide in the second rank really easily, as opposed to the other characters who have to sit up front as per the Bretonnian arm book. -1 for Virtue of the Impetuous Knight. I don't think it's that great. I don't think it should warrant a negative modifier, but they see fit to do so. I mean, it's good for getting like first turn charges and that kind of that kind of stuff. So I can see that, but I don't think it's that bad. I think it should be a -1. And then -1 per trebuchet, perfectly acceptable. Bretonnian players can't argue with that. They're very, very good, very, very undercosted. I'm surprised to see Bretonnia not getting a comp bump like Breesman do, or some extra points. But hey, there you go, Bretonnia. So, soft choices, you got +2 if you take a Hippogriff, which even at +2 no one's going to do because it's just an absolute terrible choice. +1 for Lord Paladin on foot, +2 if it's your general. So if you want to do a peasant army, you can actually get a really, really fluffy, really high comp score for taking a peasant-based army. But then, of course, you've got the problems of making a peasant army work. So +1 if you take a unit of 30 men-at-arms or more. +1 for skirmishing bowmen. I think that's a very, very easy comp point to get. Skirmishing bowmen are very good. Very good. Even, okay, they can't hit the broadside of a barn with their shooting, but it's a skirmishing unit that you get as a benefit to your army. Not, we looked at the Ungol Raiders. They were considered a power choice, and they took away from your comp score. These skirmishing archers are adding to your comp score. So I think a lot of Bretonnian players should be looking at that, the skirmishing bowmen as an option for bumping up their comp score very, very easily because they're very good. Same goes for Mounted Yeomen. Just good fast cow, nice and cheap. They don't do much, but if they block a charge, then they've done the job. Again, easy +1 to get. +1 for Question Knights over 5. Probably not going to see them even at +1. They're just not very good at all. Excuse me. +1 for the Reliquary. I don't know. Probably never going to see it. It's not a good choice. And then +3 if you only have 1 unit of knights in the army. So again, if you're taking that peasant army, you could get a very, very high comp score, but you're not going to have a very good army. So again, this is the trade-off. You take a weaker army, get a good comp score, but if you lose all your games, is it really going to matter? Is my issue with this comp pack. So we'll go on to Chaos Dwarves. I'm just going to quickly double check that this is still running. And it seems to be the case that it's still going, which is good, because this would be embarrassing if it wasn't. So, Chaos Dwarfs, -2 for a Kadai. No one can argue with that. You could even say that it probably should be a little bit more, because the Kadai is ridiculous. -1 for the Charles of Blood and Darkness. Again, acceptable. -1 for Prophet on Hashut. Again, acceptable. -1 for the Death Shrieker, -1 for the Magna Cannon, -1 for the Hell Cannon. -1 for the Bull Centaur Tarok after the first, and then -1 per War Machine after the fourth on top of the negative you already take. So if you take 4 War Machines, that's going to cost you -4. If you take a 5th one, that's an additional -2 for -6, and so on. Again, you can clearly see what they're trying to do. They're trying to just curve out the complete Chaos Dwarf gun line. And like the double Kadai that you might see if you can squeeze it in, which I don't know if you can. I don't know if points a Kadai is, but so you can see what they're trying to do there, which is good. But again, I'm keep saying the same thing. I don't think it's going to make much of a difference because the way that the comp score is applied makes very little if you win or lose all your games. Which maybe it shouldn't. If you lose all your games, you shouldn't have a chance of winning, which is fair enough. But, the people in the middle of the pack who maybe win 2 and get a draw with a soft list, maybe they deserve to win more than someone who just tables 3 people with an absolute filthy list. So you get +1 for Unit of Hobgoblin, yeah. +1 for Kadai Firebomb, +1 for Dreadquake Mortar. Surprising. I don't really know what the Dreadquake Mortar does, but it sounds horrible. +1 for the Iron Demon. As far as I know, they're actually pretty good. So I don't know why you get +1 for an Iron Demon with a Skullcracker upgrade. All my experience seeing an Iron Demon is they're actually very good. +1 for Lamassu, yeah, you can see that, and +1 for Unit of Chaos Dwarf Iron Swarm because you don't really see them. So again, try and encourage you to shake up the usual list a little bit. Probably not going to happen just based on the way the comp's applied. And we keep coming back to it again and again and again. So, Demons of Chaos. -2 for Epidemus, perfectly fine. No one can argue with that. He is filthy, and that is in a rule sense, not in the law sense. Well, he is filthy in the law sense as well. But hey, there you go. -1 for Plague Drones. Yeah, I can see that. Plague Drones are very good. They're Nurgle. They're tough to kill. can do a lot of damage. -1 for Greater Demon, -1 for level 3 or 4 Wizard. I'm not too sure why Demons are the only army that have to pay that penalty. Is a level 3 or 4 Wizard any better for Demons than it is for any other army? I don't know. You tell me. You know, the level 4 Prophet for Chaos Dwarfs is just as good. He's a level 4 Wizard. The level 4 Prophetess for Bretonnia is just as good. She's a level 4. I'm not too sure why Demons have to pay an additional point. Maybe because of their Magic War selections. I don't know. -1 for a Skull Cannon. You could argue that could be -2, but it is -4 if you have 2 Skull Cannons. So it is appropriately augmented for that double Skull Cannon, which everyone hates. I think everyone can accept 1 Skull Cannon, but when there's 2, it's really bad. So it's appropriately pointed at -4. But the penalty does become -1 if you have a solely Demons of Khorne army, which is nice. I quite like that because the Demons of Khorne took a bit of a slap in the new book. They're not as good as they used to be, and the Skull Cannon really fills a hole that army needs. So you can actually take them without suffering a massive comp hit, because your army is going to be inherently weaker than like the Wall of Nurgle with 2 Skull Cannon lists. -1 for Horrors of Tzeentch after the 2nd. Again, I can see that. That's just for the basically the ability to channel. It's another wizard in the army. They're very weak units, but they offer a lot in terms of channeling to bump up your your Great Demon on level 4 or Fate Weaver. And then they're another wizard in their own right as well. -1 for beasts. No one can argue with that. Interesting this after the first. So you actually get one Beast of Nurgle for free. Not too sure why. Certainly, if Plague Drones are -1, then Beast should be -1. Certainly. I don't think I'd be giving Beasts of Nurgle like 1 unit free. And it's -1 per Beast of Nurgle model after the 5th. So, if you want to go for Beast of Nurgle spam, it's going to cost you a lot of comp, which is fair enough. Sorry, excuse me, I've got a really sore throat. So, +2 if you've got a mono god list. I like that. Not enough armies really do that. So, kind of giving you an appropriate comp bump is nice. No, that means you come in not to have any unmarked units. I'm not too sure Demons can actually take unmarked units anyway. I suppose the Soul Grinder and Furies. Yeah, so you'd have to mark them the same. That's fine, that normally happens anyway. +1 if you don't take any Skull Cannons. I like that. +1 for Blood Throne, +1 for Burning Chariot, +1 for Demonettes above 15, +1 for Bloodletters above 12, +1 for Seeker Chariot, including Exalted Chariots. Now, I actually quite like the Exalted Chariot with 8 wounds, but I can see why they've given it a +1. Interesting to see Demonettes and Bloodletters on there. They're still good demon choices, but again, it shows that where the demon book's gone, down the way of Nurgle. But hey, there you go. And then +1 for a Hellflayer of Slaanesh. So again, they're trying to break up the usual thing that we see of like the Wall of Nurgle with the double Skull Cannon, and then that's it. That's your army. They're trying to break that up. It'll be interesting to see what kind of demon lists come through. I think the demon lists are going to be probably amongst the ones that are getting the lowest score in comp. Either they'll be very not very weak lists, but inherently weaker than anyone else. Sorry, excuse me. So Dark Elves, -1 for a Supreme Sorceress on death. Not so sure why it's just solely death. I know she's got the sack dagger to force stuff through, but Shadow's just as good. You could argue that life, just as powerful, but -1 for a Sorceress on death, -1 for Morathi, -1 for a character mounted on a Dark Steed after the first. and -1 for the character mounted on the Pegasus after the second. So you get 2 free. Not sure I would give 2 free, because you can easily just take a Dreadlord on a peg and a Master on a peg, and you've still got a very, very good army. The third character on a peg isn't going to add much more to the army. The 2 that you're getting for free don't already do. I just have them at a flat -1 each, and there's a reason why we'll get to in a bit. -1 for the Bolt Throwers after the second, that's fine. No one can really complain about seeing 2 facing them, but when you've got that wall of 4, it gets a little bit scary. -1 for Shades after the first, yeah, that's okay. Maybe Shades should be just flat -1, because even 1 unit of Shades is pretty terrifying to come up against, but I can understand they don't want to comp them too hard. They want to give you some options to put a list on the table. This is how good Dark Elves are. You can actually see they've had to augment their comp to be softer than it should be, so you can actually put an army on the table that's not like -20, because Dark Elves are very, very good. -1 for 25 plus Witch Elves, -1 for 25 plus Executioners, again, just because they're very, very good. -1 per unit of Warlocks. If there's no Supreme Sources in the army, you get your first unit of Warlocks for free. That's okay. It means you're not running a level 4, so you can only handle Warlocks then. -1 if your army includes more than 10 Warlocks in total, and in addition to the penalty of taking the Warlocks anyway. Trying to stomp out the big Warlock Death Stars we're seeing. Pop up here and there, not on the tournament scene. Oh man, coming down the cold right as I start to do a video, typical. So -1 for Dark Riders after the third, that's perfectly fine. And -1 for a unit of 10 plus Cold War Knights. Again, this is very good. And why have I just gone right back to the top for some reason? Great. Right. Technology let me down. Okay, here we go. So, the soft choices, you've got the High Beast Master, the Fleet Master, Lockheed Felheart, 20 plus Dread Spears, 20 plus Bleak Swords, the Hydra, the Chariot of either variety, the Bloodrock Medusa and the Bloodrock Shrine. You can see exactly what they're doing there. That is stuff we never see in Dark Elf armies, and it'd be nice if some of that popped up. Maybe Bleak Swords would pop up, because they're the cheapest option. So if you're running a Sack Dagger, a bunker of Bleak Swords is actually almost free reign in comp to take the Sack Dagger. I'm interested to see that the Sack Dagger and the Cloak of Twilight don't incur any penalties. Particularly the Cloak of Twilight in combination with the Peg Rider. I would have given that a -1. But I didn't like the comp back, so there we go. Dwarfs. So Dwarf players start at +3 comp. You can read that, I don't really care. Just because Dwarfs are soft, I guess. Because it's very hard to get them in a positive score, which I can completely agree with. Because if you look at their minuses, everything you want to take incurs a pretty massive penalty. What are Dwarfs good at? War Machines! Look at that. -1 for a cannon, -1 for a grudge thrower, -1 for an organ gun, and -1 for a flame cannon. So every war machine you put in your army, you are taking -1. Every choice from this list after the fourth incurs -2. So you can't even build a good gun line, the one thing Dwarfs are good at. What bothers me is there's no -1 for gyrocopters, which are fucking amazing and so much better than any war machines they have, in my opinion. I would happily trade in the grudge throwers and the flame cannons for gyrocopters, 6 of them, because they're amazing. And the fact that they're not -1 really, really annoys me. So we're going to see the fight of the Valkyrie fucking dwarf armies with 6 gyrocopters and 2 gyro bombers. You're never going to be able to kill anything, and they're just going to be steam gunning the shit out of everybody the entire game. Yeah, it's going to be fun to play dwarfs at this tournament if you draw them. So you get -1 for every second item that automatically dispels a spell. One item incurs no penalty. So if you take 2 or 3, it's -1. 4 or 5 is -2, and so on and so on. It's just because you can take multiple copies of the Rune of Bullshit. So they're soft choices then. You've got the unit of Slayers over 100 points. Bonuses not apply if there's more than one Giant Slayer per 5 Slayers. I have no idea what a Giant Slayer is or does, so there you go. +1 for unit miners over 100 points, +1 for Ironbreakers over 100 points, +1 for a Rune Lord, included with the Anvil of Doom. That should probably be an additional +1 because the Anvil is now completely terrible. +1 for the Demon Slayer, +1 for the Dragon Slayer, +1 for Thorgrim Grudge Bearer, +1 for Ungrim Iron Fist, and +3 if the army includes no war machines, which you're probably going to see because people will just take 1,000,000 gyrocopters and actually be actually given comp points for taking gyrocopters. Thank you, Roll Call Comp. Thank you very much for basically encouraging people to take the flight of the Valkyrie army. Thank you. I don't know why Rune Lord's +1. A Rune Lord's very good. Not much worse than a Dwarf Lord, not as killy, but every bit as unkillable. And gets you an additional Dispel dice and all that bullshit. So why he should be +1, I don't know. I'd take him out of there. Other than that, everything's fine. Apart from I would add in a -1 for gyrocopters after the second. But again, I didn't write it, so I can't really comment. I just have to go and play with it. If I don't like it, I don't go, right? So Empire, -1 for Chrono Command, in addition to the penalty on top of the generic penalty you pay. So it's -2 for Chrono Command for Empire, -1 for every wizard or wizard lord with Law of Light after the first. So they've put a massive stamp on the Light Council. -1 for your Master Engineer after the first. So yeah, you can have one for free. That's okay. -1 for Great Cannon. -1 for Demongraves, -1 for Hellblaster, -2 for a Stank, and -1 per War Machine after the fourth. And note that the Steam Tank counts for this, and it's on top of the individual scores per War Machine. Absolutely no issues with the restrictions there for Empire. That's the stuff that makes Empire very, very good. So they're paying appropriate points for it, and I'm perfectly happy with that. There's nothing I would change there at all. Just quickly think. No, I can't think of anything I would change. I think that's absolutely fine for Empire. So let's look at their soft choices. +1 for a Griffin, +2 if it's got a Wizard Lord on it. +1 for Wizard Lord on a Luminart, +1 for Wizard Lord on a Hurricanum. You're never going to see any of them anyway, even the +1 comp. +1 for Marcus Wolfheart. I don't know what he does, but he must be crap if he's on this list. +1 for Mechanical Steed. Yeah, that would just be funny. I want to see someone convert a Mechanical Steed. That'd be awesome. +1 for Witch Hunter after the first. So if you want to do Witch Hunter spam, you can get some nice free comp points there. +1 for 30+ Swordsman, +1 for 30+ Free Company, +1 for 30+ Spearman, +1 for Flagellant, and +1 for a Mortar. None of them I can really argue with. They're all stuff we don't really see. It's all stuff that's not completely at the forefront of competitiveness in the book. So, nothing to comment on the Empire. I think that's actually done very well. High Elves, -1 for a Frosty. No penalty, no additional penalty for the second. That is something that we should change, in my opinion. It should be -1. Similar to the School Cannons, -1 for the first, -3 for the second. Because one Frost Dart is you can easily deal with one Frost Dart. 2 Frost Darts, you get a bit scary. -3 for the banner, reduced to -2 if the banner is taken by a battle standard bearer. Yeah. Can't really complain with that. The banner's very, very good. -1 for Book of Hope if it's taken by an Archmage. So you can take the book on a Lawmaster for no penalty. That's interesting. Obviously, this is one I'm looking at quite closely because of I'm a High Elf player. I might be taking my High Elf, so this is one I've looked at quite a lot. Same as the Dark Elves, we've got -1 for Bolt Throwers after the second. -1 for Teclis, and -2 for Lariel. If you saw my High Elf review with the Sustainable Scent, you'll know why. Lariel's -2 because she is fucking awesome. Interesting to see that White Lions and Phoenix Guard are not comped the same way as Executioners and Witch Elves, the Dark Elves. Just like to say that I have said all along that those two choices are better than what High Elves have, so this comp seems to agree with me. But hey, you can take a massive horde of White Lions for no penalty. I didn't write the comp, guys. That would be -1 if I put it in. Other than that, I think it's okay as a comp. Again, I would have an additional penalty for the second Phoenix. I would have a penalty for like 30 plus or 25 plus White Lions and 25 plus Phoenix Guard. So the soft choices: +1 for a Flamespire, +1 for a Skycutter, +2 for an Archmage on a Dragon, +1 for a Lion Chariot, +1 for 20 plus slots on Sea Guard with shields, and +1 for 20 Spearmen. Even at +1, you're probably never going to see any of them. High Elves are going to be pretty negative, probably kicking around -5 for a list that's still good. No one's going to take any of that. Soft choice. You might see the Archmage and a Dragon in there because you're getting extra points for taking a Dragon, which is cool. Interesting, you can take the Archmage on a Dragon and 2 Frostheart Phoenixes and it breaks even at no points. That's very interesting. Maybe an option. You might see that, guys. You may see me run that. So, listen, man. Out of all the... excuse me, my voice went really weird then. So, out of all the army-specific comp, this is the one I probably have the most disagreement with. -1 for Slann with the Harmonic Conversion and Channeling Staff. That's fine. -1 for Slann and Lore of Death. That's fine. -1 for Source Scarver and on the Cold One up to the 3rd. That's fine. And then -2 for any more over the 3rd. That's fine. -1 for the first Source All Blood on a Cold One. A second one will incur no penalty because that means you've got no Slann. I can completely get behind that. That's okay. -1 for Teto Echo. Yeah, that's fine. He's good. He incurs a -1. So -1 per unit of skink skirmishers after the 3rd. So why do Lizardmen get 3 units of skinks for free and Beastmen only get 2 units of Ungor Raiders? Because skink skirmishers are definitely better than Ungor Raiders. So why do you get 3 for free? Skink skirmishers should be a straight up -1. They are very, very good. Very, very good. The -1 for skink cohorts costing 100 points after the 2nd. Skink cohorts are absolutely terrible. Why they should be a -1, I have no idea. On all good tournament Lizardmen lists, I have never seen a skink cohort in any of them that have got into like the top quarter or the top half of placings at tournaments. Not a single one of them has ever had a skink cohort in them. They're just a very bad choice. Toughness 2 block infantry. What are you going to do? Well, so I will stick 3 Kroxigor in there. Well, I'll kill the Kroxigor. Now what are you going to do? Nothing. So the skink comp there I don't agree with at all. I think that's completely wrong. So +1 for Carnosaur. Yeah, you can see that monsters are pretty vulnerable in the current rendition of the rules. +1 for Saurus All Blood on foot. Yeah, I can kind of see that. He's not that soft that he should be +1, but you don't really see him, so you know it's something to get the Lizardmen players thinking about. +1 for Troglodon, +2 for Troglodon, sorry. And I agree with what it says in brackets there. You're still not going to see them. They're kind of a waste of points. They don't really do anything. +1 for Ripidactyls. Again, I kind of think the same with the Saurus All Blood on foot. Yeah, they're not the best choice, but are they soft enough to give you +1? I don't know. +1 for Bristol on the Ark of Sotek. Yeah, I can see that because everyone takes the Solar Engine. +1 for Razordons. I can see that because everyone takes Salamanders. Now this one, this one really, really frustrates me. +1 for the Slann with Lore of Fire, Lore of Beasts, Wandering Deliberations, the Focus of Mystery. Why does the Slann get a benefit for Lore of Fire when no other race does? Lore of Fire is just as shit for everybody as it is for Lizardmen. Lore of Beasts, who Lizardmen actually benefit quite a lot from Lore of Beasts. And then Wandering Deliberations and Focus of Mystery are two very, very good options for the Salon. Why is it +1 comp score for these options for the Salon? I completely admit they shouldn't be a -1, but they most definitely shouldn't be a +1. And if this is a +1 for Lizardmen, why is that not a +1 for everybody? Lore of Fire is equally as terrible for all armies, not just Lizardmen. So I completely disagree with that one there. I would take that out. +1 for Jackaxe and +1 for Gurok. You can see them because they're just not seen very often. +2 for Tenor Howin, and if he's a general, then the penalties for Skinks don't apply. But then you've got to take no Saurus characters, so yeah, you're still not going to see him anyway. This one just has to run some crazy skink army. Ogres. Man, why is my nose going? So -1 should you have the standing discipline and kind of command in the army. So that's on top of the generic penalty you pay anyway, and it's only if you take both of them you get an additional penalty. So -1 for the Hellheart, -0.5 of a comp point for every ogre character you have more than units of Iron Guts. So basically simplified, if you've got, like it says there in brackets, if you've got 6 characters and only 2 units, you've got 4 more characters than you have units of 8 plus ogres or Iron Guts. So you half that and you get -2. They're just trying to stomp out the Gut Star, which have done very well, because you can't. You get penalised for the standard discipline and crown of command combo, which is in there. -1 for the Hellheart that's in there. -1 for your character, like -0.5 for every character that you spam over the unit. The Gut Star really gets slapped with a nerf back in this comp, which is good. -1 per unit of Saber Tusks. Oh man, got damn cold. So yeah, -1 per unit of 1 Saber Tusk. That's fine. No one can argue with that. -1 per unit of Mournfang with 4 or more models. Yep, that's good. I'd like to maybe see the Dragonhide banner additional -1. Oh, the Runewar banner an additional -1. But there you go. -1 if you've got 1 Iron Blaster, and -3 if you've got 2. So again, this is the kind of penalty that should have been on the Frostheart Phoenixes for High Elves, and it wasn't there. So Frostheart Phoenixes are a pretty soft choice to take for High Elves in this comp. Something that I'm definitely thinking about doing. So you get +1 for a Hunter, +2 for Hunter on a Stonehorn, +1 for 25 plus Noblars, +1 for 5 plus Sabertusk, +1 for a Yetis, +1 for a Scrap Launcher, +1 for a Slave Giant, +1 for a Thunder Tusk, and +1 if you've got no Iron Blasters. I don't think any of them are worth the +1 comp score. Ogres are going to be very negative, and they're still going to be doing very well. I don't think any of those soft choices are worth taking to get the comp. So Orcs and Goblins. So -1 for every Black Orc character you have more than unit of Black Orcs. So they actually trying to stop you from quelling your own animosity. So suck up now, Orc and Goblin players. Oh dear. -1 for more than 6 Fanatics. -1 for Savage Orcs over 30. -2 if they've got the Lucky Drumming head as well. -1 per Doom Diver, that's fine. -1 for 2 Rock Lobbers, no penalty for 1 Rock Lobber. Again, that's okay. 1 Stone Throw is not great. 2 gets a bit silly. And -1 per Mangler Squig. Again, they're all very good. You're paying appropriately for the good stuff. +1 for a Wyvern, +1 for Araboys, +1 for 20 plus Orcs, +1 for Forest Goblin Spider Riders, +1 for Nasty Skulkers, +1 for Snotlings, +1 for Boarboys, +1 for Savage Orc Boarboys, +1 for the A-Rock, +2 if you've got a Catchweb Shrine, +1 for a Giant, +1 for Squig Hoppers, +1 for 1 or more characters on a Giant Cave Squig, and +1 for 6 Rabbit Trolls or Stone Trolls, +3 if you've only got Goblins, and +5 if you've only got Orcs, with a little bit of qualificatory point there at the bottom. You can go ahead and read that while I disagree with this point. I don't think that should be +1. I think they're actually quite good. They shouldn't be a -1, but they shouldn't be a +1 either. That's the only thing I don't agree with there. Other than that, it's pretty good. Skaven. Some more bullshit to be had from Skaven, even with comp. So, -1 if you take 3 of the following items, -2 if you take 4 of the following items, and -3 if you take all 5. Brass Orb, Power Scroll, Banner of Discipline, on top of the penalty you already get, Storm Banner and the Doom Rocket. What that says to me is you can take the Doom Rocket and the Brass Orb for free. No penalty. You can take the Doom Rocket and the Storm Banner for free. No penalty. You can take the Storm Banner and the Brass Orb for free. No penalty. You see where I'm going here, guys? They should all be just marked flat -1 each. Particularly the Doom Rocket. The Doom Rocket shouldn't be able to be took free. Even if you take it on its own, it doesn't matter. It's a one-use only item. If you have one of them, you have one of them. It still does the same effect whether you've got that with all the other stuff anyway. So they should be flat -1 per Skaven. -1 for the Screaming Bell, -1 for the Assassin, -1 for Rat Swarms, -1 for Giant Rat Packs, -1 for the Slave. Okay, this is stupid. I disagree with this as well. So -1 if the number of slave units in your army is higher than the total number of Clan Rat, Storm, Vermin, or Plague Monk units in your army. Why? Why? That makes no sense. So you could take a minimum size unit of Clan Rats, a minimum size unit of Storm Vermin, and a minimum size unit of Plague Monks, and then you can still take 3 big units of slaves. That's stupid. It's stupid. Slaves should just be -1. Slaves are that good. They're one of the best units in the entire game. It should just be -1. -1 for Gutter Runners, -1 for Doom Wheel, -2 for Lightning Cannon, and -2 for the Hell Pit. Again, I agree with pretty much all of that. Not going to change any of it. +1 for Night Runners, +1 for 20 Giant Rats, +1 for Warp Grinder, +1 for Doomslayer, +1 for the Rat Ogres, +1 for Plague Sense Bearers, +1 for the Poison Wind Globadiers, and +2 for Vermin Lord. I agree with all that, because you're never going to see it anyway. Tomb Kings, you get to start with a +3, or receive an additional 150 points. Kalidas -2, again, they're comping out the Light Council, same as Empire, so for every Light Caster after the first is -1. Necronites 5 or more are -1. Casket Souls is -1, and Haratine's -1. I agree with all that. +1 for 30+ Skeleton Warriors, +1 for Tomb Swarms, +1 for Unit Skeleton Horsemen, +1 for the unit of Ushabti, +1 for the Sepulchral Stalkers, +1 for the Necroth Colossus, and +1 for the for unit 20+ Tomb Guard. Tomb Kings are still weak. I think they should have a little more benefit than +3, 150 points. I certainly don't see them as better than Beastmen. But hey, there you go. That's Tomb Kings. There's nothing I disagree with there. Vampire counts. -1 for Red Fury, -1 for Quick Blood, -1 for the Ogre Blade, -1 for Banshee Character, -1 for Dire Wolves after the first 3 units, -1 for unit of Crypt Horrors, -1 for 9+ Black Knights, -1 per unit of Hex Wraiths, -1 per Terrorgeist. I don't really disagree with any of that. Apart from maybe the second Terrorgeist should incur an additional penalty, similar to what I said about the second Frostheart. 1 is good, 2 is ridiculous. They should be comped appropriately. So +2 for a Zombie Dragon, +1 for a Coven Throne, +1 for a Bat Swarm, +1 for a Corpse Cart, +1 for Unit 15 plus Graveguard, +1 for a Varghulf, and +1 for a Black Goat. I'd probably take the +1 for a Graveguard out, because Graveguard are actually pretty good. You stick them in a big enough unit, and they still rip stuff up with their great weapons and Killing Blow. So you very easily argue that they shouldn't be a +1. Okay, I admit you don't see them very often, but they're still a very good choice. So that, I don't know, I'd probably take them out. Whereas the Chaos, everyone's favourite army. So you got -1 for a character with 3+ ward save, with an additional -1 should that character have the 3rd Eye of Tzeentch, which lets them reroll 1s on the ward save, or a 1+ armor save. That's absolutely fine. You can't disagree with that. -1 for the demonic mount, -1 per, well, yeah, -1 per demonic mount. So not if you take one, but for every one you take, you're paying -1. -1 per Gore Beast or Chaos Chariot after the first 3. Yeah, getting 3 for free is okay. -1 per unit of Mark of Nurgle. You could be very pernickety and say, well, the Demon Prince is the Demon of Nurgle, but I'm sure that wouldn't get through the compact. -1 for the Chimera with regen, -1 for Skull Crushers, -1 for Trolls taken as a core choice after the first. So Throg and 1 unit of core Trolls will not take any penalties, but a second unit will attract -1. I don't agree with that, because how often do you see more than 1 unit of Trolls when you take Throg? It's normally Throg with a horde of Trolls, bam, there's your core, done. So under this comp, you're not taking any penalties for Throg and a horde of Trolls. -1 for Demon Prince, with additional penalties for the following options. So another -1 for if he's level 3 or 4. They really don't like the Laws of Chaos Magic. They really don't like them in this compact. -1 for Demonic Flight. Again, I can see that. Could probably argue that Soul Feeder should be in there as well as an additional -1, but they obviously don't want to comp him too hard, because he's all kinds of balanced, right? +1 for 20+ Marauders, +1 for 12+ Chaos Warriors. That says a lot to how good Warriors are, all the people that were going on when the book first came out that Chaos Warriors were amazing. Well, they're kind of not. They're actually kind of shit. +1 for unit Dragon Ogres, +1 for Chaos Ogres, +1 for Manticore, +1 for Giant, +1 for Shaggoth, +2 for the Slaughter Brute, +2 for the Mutolith, and +1 if basically you've got a monomark army, and then there's some, again, qualification stuff at the bottom there. Again, completely agree with all that. I can't disagree with any of it. It just goes to show that the stuff on that list is either very weak or you don't see it, and that is exactly right with Warriors of Chaos. So no comments to add to that. And then the next one is Wood Elves, which we're going to ignore because the TO has said to ignore this because the book has since been updated, so all this has changed. So I'm going to close this. We'll go back to this thing, blah 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 blah. So that's the compact, guys. I've gone through and give you my opinions. So it's like I said, between now and the tournament, which is on the 8th of June, so about 3 weeks away, I'm going to be getting up some practice games. Talking about what army I'm going to take. I actually have 5 armies to choose from, so I'm going to decide what I'm going to take. Might be my High Elves, might be my Ogres, my Warriors, or my Beastmen, or I picked up some Dwarfs recently, but I'm not going to take Dwarfs. Dwarfs are gay. So between now and then, look forward to that. So some army list theory and some practice game reports. And then I'll go ahead and I'll report the tournament, and then we'll do a wrap-up afterwards. So, thanks for watching, guys, and I am out. Don't forget to like this video, put your comments, what you think about the comp. Again, more opinions are always valued. If I can get enough comments, maybe I can put them into like a document and send them on to the author of the comp. If I do it, it'll be one guy's, as a raving lunatic. But if we all put some comments below, maybe they'll start listening. So thanks for watching, guys. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, like the video, and I am out.